Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here on this Monday morning, broadcasting live from Memphis. Sidelines with you here for the next couple of hours. And if you don't hear us live, always go to your podcast, wherever you can get your podcast. I mean, Android, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all kinds of places, and a lot more places here coming very soon. We 25 times a month, over 300 times a year. Repetition is the mother of all skill. Don't ever forget that. Hey, let me say this real quick before we get started. John Hartwell is standing by live in Houston, site of the College Football Playoff National Championship tonight between Michigan and Washington, both undefeated at 14-0. This is going to be a battle of heavyweights. This segment brought to you by The Vitamin Shop, 5338 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, Mississippi. Justin Ross opened the first location just here a few months ago. They are open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sundays, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. So let me just get some things out here. They've got healthcare specialists, nutritionists that actually work there. You're not going to go in there and get the blank 1,000-yard stare. I don't know. I just work here. They are qualified employees. They really do. I shop there at the Vitamin Shop a lot. And I get goo. I get energy blocks. They're I think that if you're working out, you can use the stuff they have. Probiotics. My wife and I get those as well. Great for your body. If you take care of yourself, and you better, because you only got one body, go to the Vitamin Shop, 5338 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, Mississippi. Right now, Justin just sent this to me. They've got 20% off liquid IV now. Those actually work. My wife had a problem back about 3 or 4 months ago, used a liquid IV. They actually work. Unbelievable. Buy one, get one free cardiovascular and diabetic support supplements. That's January 8th through the 14th. Buy one, get one free. The Vitamin Shop, weight management now through January 21st. Damn proud to be associated with them and have them as a sponsor. And tell you what, John Hartwell, jump on in here with me right now. Got that text from you last night, and you said that you were looking up there, and I was like, Cole, who? That's Cole Swindell. I was Sigma Chi at Georgia Southern. I think he was there when Luke Bryan was at Georgia Southern. They're both in the fraternity. I bet they had some cool band parties or parties. I don't like to use the term after party. That's really gauche. But parties after the party at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. That must have been cool. But, man, what's it like out there in Houston for the national championship? I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you're going to tell us about because I want to hear about it.
Yeah, great to be on this morning, Rob. Hello to everybody out there. Yeah, well, let me start with the Cole Swindell thing because I've always been my music taste spans the genre from heavy metal to, but I guess if you had to classify me one area, country is probably it. And knew that Cole Swindell was a Georgia Southern grad. Obviously, he's done some things for them. Actually, April 20th, the day of their spring game. How about this? He is doing a benefit concert in Paulson Stadium there in Statesboro. All the proceeds going to Georgia Southern's NIL program, which is really, really cool that he's doing that. But I will say this. He made my 14-year-old daughter Lauren's world because my wife and kids weren't able to travel with me out here. She loves Cole Swindell, so I put her on FaceTime. She's laying there in the bed. It's 10 o'clock last night. Put her on FaceTime and held it up. He saw it, grabbed my phone, and took my phone up on the stage and sung to her. So it was
wow,
pretty cool. Yeah.
I mean, that is cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
he was great. But the main reason we're here, obviously, CFP championship game tonight, Michigan, Washington. Like you said, there's a big buzz around the city. Two teams that aren't household names in terms of playing in a CFP championship. So brings even more excitement around that. And, I think it's going to be a heck of a football game. There's a lot of subplots like you talked about. Even most of the Michigan fans believe that tonight may in fact be the last game Jim Harbaugh coaches. And as weird as this may sound, they believe that percentage goes up even higher if he wins. That's just who he is. And they think, if he can win a national championship and check out and say, hey, I want to see brought a CFP championship to Ann Arbor, and I'm off to the NFL. So that's one of many subplots that we'll be following here in the next couple of days.
John, why? Okay, I've talked to coaches off the record just about the Jim Harbaugh thing, and the first thing they all say is, look, everybody does everything they can to gain a competitive advantage over an opponent. And I've got friends that work for every financial advisory firm in Memphis. We're friends. I mean, and we don't talk about our stuff and all, but you hear ideas. Most attorneys will tell you they play golf with some of the people they dislike the most just to find out what's going on in the legal world. But it just, I don't know. I like Jim Harbaugh. The guy wears white socks. He wears goofy glasses. He tucks in his hoodies and his sweatshirts. He doesn't care, but he wins, and he won at San Diego, he won at Stanford, and now they've ruined that. But to me, I'm not saying I advocate cheating and bad stuff, but what did they really do? And is there someone else behind it, like Ryan Day at Ohio State, because they've beaten him 3 years in a row, and he wants him out of the Big Ten, so he's the only big dog in town, because we know Penn State can't rise up and get it done. They're 3-18 versus top 10 opponents with James Franklin, and all he does is make excuses after a loss, which makes it more likely they're going to keep losing.
Yeah, love him or hate him, Jim Harbaugh, number one, he's smart off the charts, and he is brilliant, which probably rubs some people the wrong way or makes them jealous.
Yeah.
Yes, he's quirky too, whether it's the glasses or tucking in his pullover or whatever it may be. But hell, people probably say you and I are quirky too, right? I mean, people who are successful, most of them are going to be quirky in, certain mannerisms that they have. But the dude wins. He is always looking for a competitive advantage. He is demanding on his staff. And you say all of those things. How is that any different than Kirby Smart or Nick Saban or any of those guys? And the whole thing about stealing signs, a big deal was made about it. You're not supposed to be able to advance scout in person. But in today's world of video from every angle of the stadium, if someone scratches their nose or sneezes, anybody of those, 120 people on a sideline, there's a camera angle that is picking that up. So yeah, you're right. It's there are some things that are still out there that the NCAA is looking at, like some dead period stuff during the COVID time. Were they involved in that? And whether guilty or not, I think just kind of the wear and tear on that. I do believe that he will give a very serious consideration to the NFL. Now, that's the other interesting thing of that. Depending on who you talk to, is it the Chargers where he played? Is it and he coached at the University of San Diego? Is it the Raiders? Does Belichick retire? Is it New England? So there's all kinds of theories on that too. But it'll be interesting to see. But regardless, I think there's a heck of a football game coming tonight. At this deal I was at last night, Reese Davis and Laura Rutledge and Desmond Howard, talked about some of the matchup things. I think maybe the key matchup in the game could very well be the Washington offensive line against the against the Michigan defensive line.
Yeah.
Because as everyone got to see last week in the semifinal games, it is, if you give Michael Penix Jr. the time to throw, that dude is amazing. Now he's got three dudes out there who can go up and snag it out of the air, but his passing accuracy is really something. And again, I'm probably guilty of this too. I think a lot of people that are not in the Pacific time zones, although, as they went on their undefeated streak, more and more people saw them. But I think from a media and an exposure perspective, maybe Michael Penix Jr. didn't, and this entire team didn't get the exposure, especially, in the East and Central time zones that they really deserved.
Yeah. Well, I think you're exactly right, because you lived out there for almost 8 years in the tropical climes of Logan, Utah, at Utah State. And you're right. This year, look at the numbers, the year-over-year comps. You had a very interesting statistic, and that was the Colorado State game back in September. The year before, 1.3 million people watched it. This year, 9.6 million people watched it. And that's great. It does. And we've got this in our heads that they don't play great football out there. You're out of your mind. I talked with Dana Marquez on the show. I was director of equipment operations at Auburn for 18 years and still is down in Auburn and working with helmetfitting.com and Carbon Tech shoulder pads and Falcon Pursuit. This guy is an innovator. He's kind of the Steve Jobs, Bill, I would say Tim Cook of football equipment and all. And he said that in Northern California alone, there's 3.9 million youth football players. So there's a lot of people playing football in Northern California and all out there. I think that what's going on in the national championship, the buildup, John, is people are not giving enough credit to Washington. You're right. They go to bed early. I mean, just when Auburn played Cal, September 9th, we were down at Orange Beach, and that thing was over about 1:30 in the morning. And if you listen to the post game on the Auburn Network, it was close to 2 o'clock. That's 3 o'clock in the Eastern. A lot of people are not going to do that. And I think you're right. But they play good football out there. And Washington has 26 fifth and sixth year seniors on that team. Penix is a sixth-year senior from Tampa, Florida, committed to Tennessee, signed with Indiana, and transferred to Washington. And J.J. McCarthy, hell of a quarterback too. But the Michigan brand, they're the only school that's won over 1,000 football games. That means a lot too.
Yeah, it does. And, it'll be interesting to see in the actual game tonight, because I would guesstimate you're seeing either 2 or 3 Michigan apparel clad folks as you do to Washington. Now they're both here loud and proud, but I have a feeling probably 70% of that stadium tonight's going to be for the Wolverines.
Yeah. Well, you think about this, Jim Harbaugh going to the NFL. He did have success in the NFL with the 49ers. Then he left. And now the thought of him going back, I don't know. But Michigan, Dave Tompkins talked about this, how tight-knit that fraternity is that is Michigan football. It's pretty liberal university, but very conservative football program. Bo Schembechler had Gary Moeller, Lloyd Carr. Rich Rod did not work out. That's not Michigan football. And now you've got Jim Harbaugh. And it's, you know what? I love it. You bring a perspective that nobody else that we have can really do. You have lived out in the Mountain West Conference region. You've been to Sandy. You've been to all the. I don't know where you haven't been. You and Ralph Cramden, the great bus driver. But you've been everywhere. But and that's what I think is so cool. But Dana Marquez is 3.9 million youth league football players in Northern California. I mean, no wonder the state produces more them in California and Florida. But California with 38 million people. You're right about. I think Washington is going to surprise people. I mean, I thought Texas would beat them because they'd win the line of scrimmage, and with Trevon Sweat and Bo Davis coaching the defensive line at Texas. But damn, Kalen DeBoer, that coach came from Indiana, and again, remember Tom Allen in Indiana 3 years ago was one of the hottest names.
Yeah,
he was one of the hottest names in coaching. It was Tom Allen, Jim Harbaugh, and Matt Dean, the hottest names in coaching. I had to get y'all on here together because I said, you know what? You can't get people with insight like this very often. But John said, he goes, yeah, I'll call in Monday from Houston. And I said, absolutely, from the site of the national championship. And Matt, we're talking about, and John made a great point, Washington, because people go to bed early. They don't see them enough. But luckily for all of us, we grew up with Don James and the Huskies. I remember that great, Warren Moon, a great lineman, Lincoln Kennedy. They have had some really, really good teams at Washington. They called it what do they call it? The UW, kind of the UVA of the Pacific Northwest. But Matt, let's break it down. You know Big Ten football really well. John gave us a great perspective on the Pacific Northwest. This is going to be a hell of a game tonight. I mean, it starts an hour early. Somebody must have thought through that one. That was smart. I like that.
Good morning, guys. It's going to be a really interesting game because all along this whole year, I think John and I both have been telling you on Thursdays how good we thought Pac-12 football was this year, right?
Yeah.
I'd be remiss not to say that my 12-2 Oregon Ducks are a missed field goal at the horn away from possibly beating this Washington team at their place. But
yeah,
tonight I heard Booger McFarland about 10 minutes ago say something I really agreed with. He was asked about this game, and he thought it came down to tempo. Which team can kind of, have more influence over their style? If you look at it, Michigan, they hang their hat on running the football, and a lot of their play action sets up McCarthy's opportunities down the field. They have a former NFL defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter, I believe, that's schemed up a lot of pressures that kind of really affected Alabama in the first half of that game last week. So a lot of people don't realize this. Washington's offensive line won the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in college football. I'm sure Michigan would like to debate that. We'll find out tonight. But I think my son tells me from a scouting perspective that Penix handles blitz packages really well. You got those three NFL wide receivers. I think one of the things that's really hard tonight, guys, to judge, if you remember the end of the game last week against Texas, their running back, Dylan Johnson, looked in agonizing pain on that last carry and got to be carted off the field or the sideline. If he can't go tonight, that affects their running game, makes them one-dimensional. But I will tell you, they're still going to score points. The fact of the matter is, can Michigan keep their offense off the field? I think that's the key. If Michigan can move the chains, get points early, get a lead, and their secondary is really good, guys. They've only given up 10.2 points a game, fewest in college football. I think it's an elite matchup. I still am going to go Washington. That's my prediction.
Wow. Man, you're going with Washington. I mean,
I am.
John.
And I've stayed up late all year and watched these games. I'm telling you, I've watched more Pac-12 football I ever wanted to admit. And unfortunately, the thing I keep going back to, now Michigan proved it against Alabama last week. Before last week, they'd really only faced a couple teams that were challenging, and none of them had elite offenses. This is an elite offense. We'll see what they're made of.
Well, that's the difference. Alabama's offense this year, John and Matt, it's not elite. By no way is it elite. You go back to after the 2017 season when they switched to with Tua playing. By the way, watching the Dolphins play last night against the Bills, they call it the Bills Mafia taking over Miami. That NFL football this time of year, I got to say, it's as good as it gets. These matchups, these playoffs, when they start playing some Saturday games, I don't know what it is, but it's awesome. But John, I want you to expand on what Matt just said about he goes, I've watched more Pac-12 football than I care to admit, but that's good. We need football good all over. Now, I'm obviously graduate of Alabama Polytechnic Institute, API. I love my dad's got an API sweatshirt, by the way, because that's what it was in 1954, March 18th. But this does not, the fact that there's no SEC teams in here. I mean, I wish there were. I'm still watching this thing, and I'm going to be watching it with Jeff Tickenen, a friend of mine who's a Michigan fan, and David Hager. They're both diehard Lions fans and Michigan fans, and they've been waiting a while.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and much to the chagrin of Greg Sankey and some of the folks in the SEC office there in Birmingham. Yep. As you mentioned, there is no SEC team in this year's championship game. But I think from a holistic perspective, that's a good thing, because that's part of what makes, March Madness in such demand, because it's, especially over the last few years, when you look at Florida Atlantic and San Diego State, you've had some teams that have not perennially been there. They haven't been, I hate to flip to basketball, but they haven't been the North Carolinas or the Dukes or the Kentuckys of the world. And I think that broadens the interest of the sport. And as we've talked about so many times, are there things that we need to fix in college athletics and college football? Yes, absolutely so. Mm-hmm. But is it arguably still the greatest sporting spectacle out there? And there's a lot of things very positive about college football that we've got to make sure that we protect.
Yeah. And both of y'all, and this is what feels like our show Sidelines. The daily drum beats heading into next season already, because the minute the game ends tonight, there'll be a way too early top 25 for the 24 season. Ole Miss fans are feeling it. They're 8th right now in Vegas on the odds to win the national championship. And I guess that's taking mind of Quinshon Judkins deciding, well, I think Ole Miss decided for him to move on again. But, man, the SEC fans, wouldn't y'all agree, are going to be every fan is going to be going, we're still the best conference. And that argument's going to be coming from either Washington, formerly of the Pac-12, now of the Big Ten, and Michigan, Matt. John's exactly right. If you're a TV director, executive in New York or Bristol, Connecticut, whatever, you got to be excited about this, because Michigan, by the way, Michigan's got fans everywhere. They're like that Bills Mafia. I mean, God. And by the way, Tua, he is a hell of a quarterback. Good gosh, but he threw 2 kind of dumb interceptions last night, Matt. But talk about that.
Well, if you look at Michigan, it all and John knows that this with the old Big Ten, it all goes back to Michigan, Ohio State as the legacy of Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes. I mean, they created a lot of fans a long time ago that are still cheering for them in both segments, right? And they won't even mention each other's name of the institution the week of that, the big game, right? The Ohio State-Michigan game. It's a school up north or whatever, right? Kind of going all over the board here quickly. It's only going to get better, because next year we got 12. And let me tell you guys right now, if we'd have had 12 this year, Georgia would have won. They're the best team in college football that we can't even talk about, because the bottom line is they got left out after back-to-backs in an undefeated season. They lose by a field goal on a neutral site to an Alabama team that was playing really well, that got very fortunate in an Auburn game they never should have won. Okay? So then we say, Georgia, you're not good enough. You lose every game. You're done. You're done, Georgia. Yeah. And the reality is Georgia's pissed, so Kirby says, okay, you want to see us play? How about 63 3/4? Is that good enough? Yeah, we're not bad. So the reality is it's a crapshoot, because Alabama dominated the second half except for the last 4 minutes of that second half last week. They're up 20-13, okay? They had multiple bad snaps that put them in bad field position. They had one drive that was 1st and 10, I think at the 30, yard line.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it's 3rd and 29 at midfield or whatever, right? So, I mean, let's be honest, guys. This is a fine line. And kudos to Michigan. Everybody's been telling us how good they are all year. But you know what? You guys don't watch as much Big Ten football as I do. They played a terrible league. I mean, except for 3 teams, the league is just very blah. It's blah. And good luck tonight, because if they're the more physical team, they will win. Now, quickly on NFL, nothing better going, guys. You know what's happened? The NFL is brilliant. You had the fantasy football craze, which got a lot of women excited about the NFL. There are a lot of women I know that play fantasy football leagues across the country. So they're up there watching Detroit play Minnesota yesterday because they have Jahmyr Gibbs on their team, or David Montgomery, or maybe Sam Laporta, right? I mean, that's how crazy football has gotten. And then you add in the gambling aspect. Forget about the fantasy stuff, the gambling aspect. Now we have situations that went on this year. We didn't talk about what went on in the state of Iowa. Iowa had a defensive tackle that played NFL this year that didn't even play the whole year because supposedly he bet on a couple games. The DOJ got him in the state of Iowa, but no one – I guess the DOJ in Alabama didn't look into the gambling lines in the state of Alabama. It's really interesting how gambling has turned everything upside down. But yet – it's almost taboo to talk about it with 18 to 22-year-olds. Well, what did we do when we were 18 and 22, guys? We did March Madness pools. John probably didn't because he was division tournament. But, you know, all this stuff that 18, 22-year-olds
strictly recreational and monetary profit.
No monetary
for fun only, for shits and giggles.
But I'm telling you guys, these young people have so much at their fingertips now on a phone. Their betting apps, there's all this stuff they can do, and it's transferred into the real world where pro football right now is just so exciting for a lot of people. And then you look at yesterday, there were so many scenarios for playoffs. How about Buffalo? They were 6-6 at one point, win their last 5, they win the division. They're really hot now. They got a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And you talk about the Bills Mafia, part of that goes back to the Jim Kelly days with Marv. Levy and those 4 Super Bowls, and that poor Scott Norwood missed field goal cost them a win back in the 80s against Portsmouth Giants. Did I
91? Yeah. Well, what's cool? I like this by Kelly Leak, and Kelly Leak. I don't know where you live. You're very smart. Look at the explosion of flag football being played by women. And I always say this is, I'm trying to get. I remarried. Now I've got Mallory as number 4 on the roster, and she's an Alabama grad, still a good person. And her roommate, Jessica, they both went to great Catholic education, St. Pius X in Atlanta. Nobody does it better. Nobody. But God, they know football. And Jessica has twins that are like 8 years old or 9, and they play in a tough-ass league. And these kids, they're twins. They're unreal. And their grandfather, Rich, over in Atlanta, y'all probably all seen him for years on the Feinbaum show. He's one of the greatest callers ever. He and I were at lunch about a month ago at the Mad Italian. By the way, if you're ever over in Atlanta, pop up to Dunwoody, the Mad Italian. Oh, my God, the Philly cheesesteak there. So Rich is from Philly, So, I mean, he's a Bama fan from birth, growing up in Philly. But that's the power. It's the reach. I'm over there about a month ago. We're talking college football. I put on my Italian, my Philly cheesesteak, a side of spaghetti, and their spaghetti's unreal. And you put it on the sandwich and you put it in there. I go, oh my God, that's unreal. What do you call that? He goes, it's a pizza steak. I mean, but I'm with you about the NFL. They are brilliant. And I talk about it a lot. Remember the DX trading stamps when we were all kids? You would have a book and it was the roster of every NFL team. And every time you got gas, or your parents bought beer or groceries, whatever, at a DX gas station, you got those stamps, and you tried to fill out the whole roster. That made you knew everybody on every roster. Garrow, your premium, the field goal kicker. And that was one of the hardest ones to get for the Dolphins. And another one, Jan Stenerud for the Chiefs. I mean, this NFL, the Buffalo Bills, 4 straight, didn't they play in 4 straight Super Bowls, guys, in the early 90s? But this is their 4th straight division to win. And what's going on with the Eagles? losing 5 of their last 6. What's happening to Jalen Hurts? I know a lot of people think it was a storybook, fantasy. Everything was so cool about him in Alabama. It really wasn't. And I think they were kind of like have a good time at Oklahoma. But guys, college football, do y'all think the NFL will ever get to the point where, and we're going to get into this we got to take a break. After the break, I want y'all to answer me. I'll start with John. Will the NFL start to subsidize NIL like Major League Baseball does with the farm system? Just something to think about. We're going to be right back after this quick commercial break on Monday's edition of Sidelines, live from the Bluff City, Memphis. After this.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Curve everything else. Win, 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 win. These ops ain't lit. Mommy. Win, 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 win.
All right, we are back with 2 of the best. Coach Matt Dean, Rhodes College over in Memphis, most beautiful inner city campus in America. My dad says an architect, he's designed some stuff over there like your pool. He's the one who put that. I found out he put the underwater sound system in there years ago where you could hear music, maybe some Skinner or some Led Zeppelin, perhaps some Willie Nelson while you're swimming in your long workout. But Coach Matt Dean, one of the nicest and best guys, and also John Hartwell, the AD at ULM. And John, you don't see many athletic directors as aggressive as you are on social media, and thank God you're doing it. Like Missy Bilderback getting the win the other night. That was against James Madison, was it? No, Southern Miss.
State.
Okay.
State.
Yeah, you got so many things coming on there, and I'm sorry, I apologize. But that's great that an AD is doing that. A lot of ADs don't do it, and I think that's fantastic. I mean, some of these schools, they've got a staff of all these people doing it for them, but to have the AD doing that, and Dino Hoops, Matt does it too, that's really cool. And if I was a student athlete at your school, I go, damn, John Hartwell's putting out on social media what we're doing. And even in a loss, you're going to have something encouraging to say. And I respect the hell out of that. So thank you. And talk about, if you would, you think the NFL will get involved in subsidizing NIL just because, hey, the colleges are giving them this product. And yeah, those guys make some money, but the colleges are putting out a lot to get it there.
Well, that's a really interesting concept, and it could happen. Hey, let me make one other point before I forget about it, as it relates to, the intertwined relationship between college and the NFL. And as you look today, I guess you'd call it Black Monday in terms of head coaches in the NFL. And as we have progressed through the majority of the coaching cycle, at least from a head coaching perspective, in college football, these NFL openings, how many of these will pursue and hire potentially a current college coach, and what's the trickle down effect of that? So I do think there's the opportunity, to see a couple, 2, 3 more collegiate positions, maybe even outside of Michigan if Harbaugh goes to the NFL, that will have an interesting ripple effect here as we have another month in the recruiting cycle and recruiting visits on the college level with another signing day within the next month. So that'll be interesting, and would love to hear you guys' perspective on that. But let me talk about NIL for just a minute, because we talked about this the last couple of weeks as it relates to bowl games, and specifically the non-New Year's Six bowl games and players opting out and things like that. I do think there is a scenario where potentially the NFL could get involved, but I think part of the challenge there is, unless it's something that's spread equally across, FBS players or however they may go about it, that all of a sudden, if you have an NFL team or the NFL as a collective, pardon the pun there as it relates to NIL, but if an NFL team, let's just say, the New Orleans Saints decide they want to go all in on Nussmeier, whoever the quarterback is going to be next year for LSU, then all of a sudden, is there an investment there that is potentially called tampering down the line in the draft process and things like that? So I think you would have to look at that. But you also have the flip side where, and a lot of these things are exaggerated, but some are not. When you have a Power 5 caliber starting quarterback who transfers and is getting potentially a 7-figure deal, where you may have a handful of situations where a college quarterback is making more than a guy that's playing on Sundays and starting in the NFL, and that's the tail's wagging the dog there too. So there's a lot of nuances there, but to say anything is off the table in the relatively infant stages of NIL is probably being disingenuous.
Yeah, and let me say this. I like this comment by Shoney down in Valdosta, Georgia. Rob Anderson: fantasy football is the new bridge for some female football fans, and hold ya, bro. Look, my mom used to play bridge all the time. We had, God bless her soul, bless her heart, the poor lady that was our house mother at the Sigma Nu house when I was a freshman, used to have her bridge group get together on Thursday nights. And one time we were having a swap with a sorority, and let's just say it was just fun. We were having a good time. And man, some of those old women were like, I've never heard such things. And they quit playing bridge there. But man, I think fantasy football, guys, it's like when even if you have a mock portfolio of stocks, you will pay attention to the stock market. It'll make you focus. What'll really make you focus, though, is when you put your real money in there. And your people that bitch and moan on all these shows and gripe and call in going off every day, I dare to say few, if any of them, are invested in your program in terms of being season ticket holders and donors or making connections for, financial contributions to their respective universities. I say that because when I'm at games, if you are one of those people that, God forbid, you boo, you don't boo. You just don't do that. And college or pro, I don't do that, except at the officials, maybe sometimes. But Matt, you agree with that? I mean, what I just said?
Yeah, and I'll add one caveat too. Another interesting thing about NIL, I think it's kept a few kids longer in a program where they feel comfortable with because they're getting paid something. I don't know if we ever can truly find out the amounts that some of these players get, but a lot of the reasons they're not leaving early is to know that they are going to fortify their education. They're going to get some money. They're not going to have the hardships. And even though a lot of them think there's a lot of money out there, the NFL is the hardest one to crack. And it's the shortest amount of tenure. Now, if you're a basketball person, these 19-year-olds that are projected first round and get it, I think it's really tough traveling as a 19-year-old with all these men in the NBA. It's an 82-game schedule. I think it's difficult. But if you're guaranteed 4, 5, 6 million, that's a little different. But let's say you're a linebacker that's projected 6th, 7th round, okay, or undrafted free agent, and there's something in the pipe for you, $7,500K, and let's say you're a business major and you know how to manage your money a little bit. It gives you kind of a head start, and you don't have debt because you've been scholarshiped. I think for all the bad we talk about NIL, and trust me, I know there's a lot out there. I think there are some good scenarios, and I'm not just saying extravagant because I look at I'll give you my Iowa Hawkeyes. Luke Lachey, Jay Higgins, who was first-team All-American, Nick Jackson, who used to be at Virginia, is 117 tackles away from being the NCAA leader in career tackles. A guy named Jeremy Harris. All those guys have opted back in to come back for one more year at the University of Iowa. A team that doesn't even have an offense. These are all defense. The rest of these guys are defensive guys, right? Yeah. So there's something going on in that swarm collective with their culture. They're making enough for, like, you know what, guys? We don't have it too bad, and it's still not technically a job. And I think there's some merit to that.
Brendan Martin was on the Saturday Roundtable with Dave Tompkins and Yancey Porter and Billy Roberts and me this past Saturday on Sidelines. And one of the cool things, Brendan does a podcast. He's done about 30 podcasts here recently with Urban Meyer, him and his dad, Buddy Martin.
Yeah.
He said one of the things that Urban Meyer told him was, you run read option. You run these up-tempo offenses when you don't have the players, in a sense, okay? You do whatever you can to win. And I look at Iowa with a defense that's 5th or 6th in the country. Couldn't you get somebody to put a semblance of offense there? Because Iowa's got everything in place. A multi-billion-dollar endowment, great medical, law. Iowa State's got the vet school. And let me also say there are only 6 schools in America that have the trifecta, and that is law school, medical school, and School of Veterinary Medicine. And University of Florida is one of them. But you sit there and you look, you got to couldn't you get somebody? I mean, look, Urban Meyer won with Dan Mullen at Utah. And they won at Florida. And Mullen had a hell of a 9-year run at Mississippi State. Yeah, go ahead.
No, Bowling Green. Didn't Urban Meyer also
and Bowling Green for 2 years. Yeah, exactly. So you think about it, John, your coach that you just brought in, Bryant Vincent, I'm already getting people. I mean, he gets the 5th best recruiting class out of 14 quickly, but this is a guy like these coaches that you see from North Dakota State that come up, isn't that the new coach at Kansas State came from North Dakota State? I mean, have either one of y'all ever been to Manhattan, Kansas? Raise your hand. You've been to Manhattan, John? Yep. Okay, have you been, Matt?
Well, here's the thing. I applied to go to school. They have a great broadcast news journalism program.
Okay.
I didn't visit because I got into Drake University, but I did apply to Kansas State. Both my nephews were in marching band at Kansas State. Great place.
Okay. Well, my dad told me that back in the 70s, he was up there for something on a meeting. He said, everywhere you went, every fast food store, gas station, grocery store, Purple Pride. It was everywhere. And Johnny, by the way, are you doing stuff like that in Monroe? Because, you hear people say, that's a tough place to win. Maybe the toughest place to win. Well, since you've gotten there, you're already making changes. You got to be having fun. I mean, it's not fun to make changes, because you respect people. And that's the most important thing that there is. But you've got a vision. Are you meeting with your 17 coaches and your 389 student athletes on a regular basis? Do they all know you?
Because I think it's really an important part of changing the culture to make sure those that are within the program understand that vision. And it doesn't happen overnight, but I think you've got to remain consistent with it. And, hey, the fact that, we have an expectation over a period of time to be in the upper echelon of the Sun Belt Conference, which we do that. We've talked about our league before.
Yeah.
That hey, if we're doing that, then we're making postseason play in various sports, and over and beyond what we did last year in women's golf and winning the conference championship. And if you have an expectation for it to change without consistently reminding those who are agents of the change about it, both internal from a coach and staff and student athlete perspective, as well as the university personnel, you've got to do it internally, and you've got to do it externally with your stakeholders, whether it's alums or local folks in the community or in any of Northeast Louisiana.
I mean, to me, what's unusual, Matt, I think you would agree that, John, as an athletic director, you make yourself available. And I mean, look, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And so many listeners and viewers go, man, how do you get an AD to come on? And same thing with you, Matt, because one thing we all know, it doesn't matter D1, 2, or 3. AD is an AD. Get the same job. The difference might be Matt might be chalking a field and doing other things that an AD I'm willing to bet, John, as you rose up through the ranks, know about everything. When those coaches are sitting down, I've been around Matt when his coaches are talking to him. Cleanthes's the baseball coach and his football coach. I mean, it's like they're talking to a peer. It's not like they're going to somebody that's not really listening to them. Because a lot of ADs are sharing it. I'm being honest. They're sharing a seat with their ass. They're not. I said this about you when you were in the running for the Auburn job. Wherever you end up, you're being a CPA. You've been in the private sector, and you're a graduate of the Citadel. I mean, what's not to like about that? But I just think it's different when in a meeting, when you have a meeting with your coaches. I'm just going to guess for both of y'all. And I'll start with you, John. They're not very long. You've got an agenda, you've got structure, and after that, any questions? Anyone? All right, hoo-ah, let's go. Is that what it's like?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be coordinated with it, but you've also, I mean, we have a monthly head coaches meeting, but also meet periodically with coaches one-on-one because you want to get their feedback, but what your feedback is from your women's tennis coach is probably not going to have a whole lot of relevance to maybe your football or your baseball coach. So I think it's important to do those individually. But again, I think it's the vision goes department wide, although the nuances are individual area. But back to your point about being a leader, and it doesn't matter if you're in athletics or in the stock world or a CEO. I'm a firm believer in, hey, don't have the expectation for anybody that works in your organization to do something you won't do yourself. I mean, you'll see me picking up trash around our venues if I'm, walking to a meeting or walking on campus. Probably the thing that grinds people the most. So my first 3 years at Ole Miss, this was before football staffs had, 50 people outside of the off the field folks. I was actually the football ops guy in terms of arranging travel. So a lot of our sports now have their own operations person who that's what they do is they're in the planes, trains, automobiles, and hotels business. Yes. And so when I question something about, hey, why are we doing this? Or why, they're like, oh crap. He knows about team travel and stuff like that because he did it. So that's a good thing in a lot of ways, but some coaches may say, golly, what, he knows too much about the ins and outs of this.
Well, I mean, who's the most respected Marine in the history of the United States Marine Corps? Chester R. Pulley came in as a grunt, as a private, and it rose all the way to the title of Commandant of the Marine Corps because he knew everything about it. And he could talk to, as a general, he could talk to an enlisted man, an NCO, and there was a level of respect that it's just you can't buy it. You got to earn it. But I like what you just said, Matt. You've got more. You've got 527 student athletes, 26.7. I just did the math. Almost 27% of your student body at a very hard academic school is a student athlete. That's crazy. But you've got some awesome benefactors and an endowment over $400 million. And, you're dealing with, kids, just like John is. And a lot of them are there. I don't know if they're there on an academic scholarship or whatever, but they come to you and you're become surrogate fathers to a lot of these kids because they may be from across the country and they may need to know who a good doctor is to go to or whatever. You kind of wear a lot of hats, don't you? Not kind of, you do.
Well, we do. And John and I both do. It's interesting because when I was a basketball coach, I really felt like I was in a silo for a little bit because I was worried, I got to win games to keep my job, right? At some point, they can say, well, all my kids are graduating and they're going out and doing really well, but at some point, you got to win more than you lose, usually. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was very fortunate. I was lucky enough to have some great players win multiple championships. Twice we were a possession away from the Sweet 16, but it just shows you. I just want you to know, and I know John knows this because he's a former D1 athlete. Winning is really hard, and there's different types of winning. I mean, we all have to win in the classroom. I mean, I think we'd all agree like that. We have to. If I'm hiring a coach, I need someone to put my student athletes on the schedule that gives them the best opportunity to be successful in the classroom. At a place like Rhodes College. And John, even ULM, I'm not, we have to, because the majority of our kids are not playing professionally. That's number one. Yeah. But number two, and this is equally important. The reason we meet with these coaches a lot of times is we want to hear their vision. We want to hear their plan. John inherits a job last year. He has to do his due diligence to find out from his Olympic sports to all the way up to football, where am I at in terms of, do I philosophically agree with everyone that's in the room? And there's an art form to figuring out, okay, I got 2 or 3 or 4, whatever the number is. How am I either going to make them better or create a short list when it's time to call in the rent, right? So it's a really difficult job. What I've noticed from John, I follow him on social media. He supports his student athletes. He's at games. He travels with certain teams. I'm sure we don't know the half of it with the one-on-one text with coaches after a big win or seeing a student athlete after a practice and a fist bump, whatever. That's all part of the job. But then the final piece is, this is where I think John knocks it out of the park. You got to have a business model that's successful for your institution as well. You got to find out where the net, revenue opportunities are. And if you don't do that, especially at places like ULM, I'm guessing, John, it makes the job much more difficult for your entire coaching and student athlete base because, and a great example is why basketball coaches have always taken one for the team and played these guaranteed buy games. Same thing with football. And a lot of that money doesn't go back totally to their programs. It helps other programs. And that's why it's a really complex thing. What John does is 24/7. There are days on Thursdays when we're trying to get him on here. That's why today's beautiful, because he's actually able to talk with us a little bit. But there are things that come up, man. There are forest fires, Rob, you have no idea about. And I didn't until I became an AD. When I was in that basketball silo, I was worried about 15 to 18 kids and mom and dads. Let's not ever forget that. Everybody, if you coach basketball, the one thing I told my wife, everybody in that gym thinks they coach basketball. They played at rec league. They played middle school. Some played some high school. I get it. Actually, the ones that I have a better relationship are the ones that played in college because they understand what I'm dealing with. So I told her, if you want to come to the games when the kids are young, don't sit by the parents. And John, my first head coaching job was coaching your nephew. We started out, I think it was 1 and 12, and I was seeing a sports psychologist. As an assistant coach, I had never lost, because that's why I got a chance to be a head coach. I was on successful programs. And we ended up winning 7 conference games that year, got a 6 seed. We ended up going like 6-6 our last 12. But man, I will tell you this. I appreciate how hard winning is. So like tonight where John's at in Houston, it is so difficult to get to that game. Can't even tell you. Because I'm telling you right now, I think Georgia's the best team, but they're not there. It's so difficult to get to that game.
Yeah. What you just said, and John, you really are, both of y'all. I mean, John, you're on this show, and this is cool because the other day, You didn't, and I didn't get a response from you. It's okay. Something's going on. You had an emergency come up. Well, hell yeah, that's what you're paid to do. Take care of that. And the thing that, I mean, if you've coached on any level, what you realize is you have a respect for coaching, and a head coach, unfortunately, doesn't get to coach all that much compared to when they were a position coach or a coordinator. And man, there's a lot you got to deal with. And the more myopically focused you can be on that sport, the better. And then the more you know about it. But I agree. I think Auburn baseball coach Butch Thompson said, oh, if I'm wrong, I stand corrected. But the man from Amory, Mississippi, Coontail, Mississippi is where he's actually from. Butch Thompson said he's coached some of these baseball, legends, kids. And I think it was John Schmaltz. He said, those are the easiest. He said the same thing. He said, those are the easiest guys in the world. He goes, we all remember the documentary on ESPN about David Cutcliffe and the Mannings. And Philip Fulmer said, I invited Archie to come in with, Coach Cutcliffe and me to talk about strategy. And we looked over there and he was asleep, snoring on the couch. It's like, hey, but the best parents are the ones that will say, look, I've got a career. I'm raising these kids and all, but I trust you. I am entrusting you with coaching them. And the worst parents are the ones that meddle and want to micromanage, because in a sense, they're living vicariously through their kids, because maybe they have some inadequacies in their own lives. Maybe could be a number of things, but they're frustrated or whatever. But and also about officials. I always told my kids, because, man, they're fiery. But walk up before the game, look the official, the referee in the basketball game, whatever, look them in the eye, shake their hands, and say, thank you for being here, sir. And just do your thing. If you get called for something, just shut your mouth. It's like getting pulled over. Yes, sir, I was speeding. Remember the scene in the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles when the car had burned up and everything, and the state trooper pulled over John Candy, and he said, sir, are there any working instruments at all on this vehicle? He goes, sir, not a one. He was honest with him. They'd all been melted. But anyway, John Hartwell, you never know what you're going to get on here with an ADD, OCD, NBA, NFL, CHL, whatever. It is so cool to hear what Matt just said, because it comes from the heart. And you, same thing. You're all over social media, but you're always finding something positive. You get beat. Okay, well, you can't stay beat. I love how you approach it, John. And that's why one day the two of y'all are going to be the co-commissioners of the world of college athletics, because John and you both, Matt, have the background as student athletes, but you also understand the business side of it, but more than anything else, the people side. Every one of these people is invested in you, and if you're invested in them, you'll get a great return on investment, won't you?
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about this before. We're all in the relationship business, and I know it's probably an overused phrase, but it goes in relationships with coaches, staff, student athletes. Nobody cares how much you know unless they know how much you care. And if you take a genuine interest in your student athletes and your coaches and your staff and your donors, things are so much easier. And kids, student athletes are perceptive. If it's all a facade and it's just just word of mouth or just saying something for the sake of saying it and it's hollow, kids can read right through that and they will check out on you in a heartbeat. If they know you legitimately care about them as individuals and their well-being, then they're going to be very responsive to you.
Yeah, it is. Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com joins us. And John, you and Matt, I know we'll be back on with you Thursdays, but stay on as long as you can, because I'm going to tell you something. Franz has been writing, and Franz, Brendan's right. He goes, you keep putting out unbelievable content, your daily thoughts. Folks, whether you're a Gator or not, okay, you want to know what the hell's going on. You know why there's always smart people at the cocktail party, at the dinner party, that really know what the hell's going on? Because they read a lot. You don't want to know why people are fast and in great shape, because they get up early and they run, they swim, they bike, they lift, they stretch, they take care of themselves. Some of the best writing you will find anywhere. Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com, Buddy Martin, Ben Troop, Brendan Martin, the whole crowd follow him. Franz, we're talking with Matt Dean, you know, the AD, associate AD now at Rhodes College in Memphis, John Hartwell, the AD at ULM. We're talking a lot about investing in your student athletes and how much goes on behind the scenes. John mentioned that he used to be the operations guy when he was an associate AD at Ole Miss, and he is in charge of all the travel and the logistics and everything like that. And as he's risen up, people don't want to challenge him because he's 6'7", 232 pounds of steel, Citadel graduate, but he understands all of the, you know, minutia of what goes on in there. Franz, you've been writing about sports for a long time. You really get it, but look at Florida. Billy Napier has more support people than he does guys on the roster, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Do you see where there's a little bit of redundancy in the Department of Redundancy? That's a double oxymoron.
Well, you know, as much as a lot of people hate to admit it, Jim Harbaugh is right. You're getting, you know, you're paying coaches millions and millions of dollars, and you're asking kids to go out there and risk their lives, because that's what they do. You know, if you spend 3 years in the NFL, your lifespan average is 57 years before you die. That's a fact. You think of all the blows you take to the head, to, you know, the trauma of your body. And, you know, 10 years from now, you got kids that are starting to have, after their playing days are over, suddenly they can't get out of bed because they can't walk and things like that. And you see it all the time. You really do. If you've hung around long enough with football, it's not so much so in basketball, but I know a lot of basketball players, a whole lot of former college basketball players, who their knees creak, their feet hurt like hell all the time. You know, it's a different kind of trauma. In football, you're getting the trauma up in here. In basketball, it's down below the waist for the most part. Although I got to tell you, Florida's got a freshman 7-footer named Alex Condon, who I am told has elbows like razors, you know, and some of these guys almost get their heads torn off by that. But, you know, you think about all the stuff they go through, and Harbaugh's right. You're paying coaches millions. Why not pay the kids? And the answer is going to be this. You're going to have to come to a situation where every kid is going to get paid the same amount. The conference is going to decide it, and you're going to have salary caps, for example. And, you know, if you paid 85 scholarship players, if you gave them all $20,000, that's $1.7 million. You can afford it. If you're the SEC, you're getting $100 million in 2 years is what it'll be. The money coming in from ESPN. You're telling me you can't give kids $20,000 each? And heck, you know, I was the assistant sports editor of the Savannah Morning News in 1971. And when they gave me a raise, to $127.50 a week, boy, I didn't know how I was going to spend it all, because that meant I could go to Pinky Masters and buy 5 beers after work, you know, with that extra $2.50. I mean, my goodness, that was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I got my first one was done and paid for. And I'm thinking, holy cow. Now, you get kids who come from situations where they don't have anything. Mama's working 3 jobs. They don't have anything. $20,000 is all the money in the entire world.
It is. It is.
You take $20,000 and you got, at the average SEC school, 260 athletes on scholarship. Take 260. Yeah. Multiply that times 20,000, you get $5.2 million.
Correct.
You telling me you can't afford that? You're out of your minds. You can.
Franz, hold that thought. John, I know you've got to get going. Matt, stay if you can. John, let people know how they can follow you and keep up with you. You're out in Houston, going to the national championship game tonight. As always, thanks so much for sharing your time with us, your insight. We respect the hell out of it and you. You're muted. John, are you there? Okay.
Yeah.
We lost you there
about that.
Yeah.
Franz, I appreciate your thoughts there. And you can count me one of those former college basketball players that, I'm paying the price on March the 12th. I'm having my left knee replaced. So I can relate to those thoughts, but great insight and conversation, guys. I appreciate it. You can follow everything ULM Warhawks Athletics at ulmwarhawks.com, John_Hartwell at Twitter. And as always, appreciate the opportunity to visit with you guys. Look forward to a great game tonight, and y'all have a great week.
Hey,
I'll Venmo you money. Get me a program, okay? Be careful out there.
One last thing. I remember so well the late great Linda Harper, who was at back when it was University of Northeast Louisiana University.
Yeah, the Indians. The Indians.
You got it. I remember her quite well. I
love it. Hey, look, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. John, we'll see you Thursday. Matt and Franz Beard will be with us here as we head into hour number 2 on Monday's edition of Sidelines, live from Memphis, the River City, the Bluff City. Hopefully we're going to get some snow here soon. Talk to you back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Franz Beard, Matt Dean. Friends, looking at your daily thoughts here, one final pithy thought. They're playing a national championship game tonight without anyone from the Southeastern Conference. Michigan and Washington are ranked 1 and 2. Both are unbeaten, but the lack of an SEC team playing for the title does give this a similar feeling to the championship game of the NIT. Michigan is a 4.5-point favorite, largely because the Wolverines, A, beat Alabama, and B, have the best lines of scrimmage than any team not named Georgia in all of college football. That being said, I'm going to throw this at you. I'm going to start with you, Matt, and then I want Franz to come back. Matt, would Georgia beat this Michigan team? Because I'm with you. I think they're still the best team in college football.
Let me just say this, Franz. It's great to see you. You kind of threw me off. Those look like new glasses. You look good today, brother. But hey, here's my.
Yeah, look good. Oh, my. And they're this flex stuff that
yeah, you got your ears lowered. Looks like you got a little haircut too. Happy New Year, brother. But here's my thoughts. If this was a 12-team playoff this year, we'd still see Georgia in the mix. That's just me personally. Yeah. I think they had a bad day, lost a close game to an Alabama team that Saban kind of has Kirby's number if you look at the long scope of things. But tonight, Michigan's got a good line of scrimmage, so does Washington. Who controls the tempo? It wouldn't shock me if Harbaugh's team won. It wouldn't shock me if Washington won. I think 4.5 is too high. I think it's a pick 'em because, quite frankly, Washington, I think, can pick up the blitz packages, and I think they can move the ball. I think Michigan's going to try to keep the ball away from Washington's offense. They're going to try to run it down their throats. We'll see what happens.
Here's the thing that I'll start with. Georgia would be a 2-touchdown favorite over either one of these teams.
I agree.
Yeah, and it's just one of these things. You have a bad day at the office, and you got penalized for it. Yeah. And here's this. They could. It's rather than the Iron Bowl, they could call this the Irony Bowl, because you have a Michigan team that probably is going to have all 15 of its wins vacated. They're going to be 0-15 officially under the NCAA. And they're going to try to burn Hartwell at the stake. I mean, they've already collected all the bonfire wood that they need and everything. And he's going to look like Joan of Arc, strapped to the pole when they burn him. And then you've got Washington, which is part of the reason why there is no longer a Pac-10 or 12 or whatever it was. It's now the Pac-2, and you got Washington, which has helped destroy a 126-year-old conference. So, between the two of them, this is the Irony Bowl. It's going to be ironic whoever wins. And quite frankly, it does. It feels like because Alabama or Georgia or LSU or any SEC teams in there, you could even throw Vanderbilt in there. But they haven't won anything since Dan McGugan died, and that was 100 years ago. My gosh, it just does. It feel this feels like Quinnipiac and Robert Morris for the NIT championship game. It really does. It just doesn't feel like it's for real because you don't have an SEC team in there. Washington's going to win the game, I think. Michigan's favored. I got to go with the Florida boy there at quarterback and Michael Penix. And, when Michael Penix hoists that championship trophy up, it'll be just like when if Harbaugh does it, it'll be like doing this to the NCAA. If Michael Penix does it, it's going to be like doing this to the University of Florida, or in the FSU and Miami, which never recruited him.
That's amazing.
It is, and he's a sixth-year senior, and it was brought up by Shoney down in Valdosta, one of our regular viewers. Love him, man. And he said Tennessee pulled the scholarship offer at the last moment from Michael Penix, and that was when Butch Jones was there. So, I mean,
no. They pulled it. They pulled it when they brought in your boy,
Jeremy Pruitt. Yeah. Okay. It was in between. Yeah. He got lost in the shuffle is what I meant to say. Yeah. But Franz, great writing about what's going on. I'm going to be watching the game tonight with some Michigan friends, but I just look at it like I'm like you. Jim Harbaugh has been singled out, and I look at the number of schools. I mean, when Kansas just a few years ago hoisted the national championship trophy up, and at the time, Mark Emmert, the head of the NCAA, called them Kansas State, or he said something really stupid. Everyone thought, well, that'll be short-lived. They'll be taking away the national championship trophy. What have they done to Bill Self? What did they do to Sean Miller at Arizona? What did they do? Bruce Pearl and Auburn punished themselves more than any of these other schools did anything. And they had them on tape, a strong-ass offer. I mean, you name it. It is absolutely selective enforcement. And as Archie Bunker used to say, it's a bunch of crapola. Matt, I know you've got just a couple of minutes before you got to go, but dadgummit, we got to have rules, and it's a voluntary compliance deal when you're a member of the NCAA. And I know Michigan didn't play the toughest schedule this year, but they showed up and they stood out when they did play a decent team. But just before you go, just kind of give us your Cliff Note version of what you think is going to happen tonight at 6:30. I'm glad they moved the time up tonight. 6:30, folks, tonight for the national championship. And I would say a lot of women out there are excited because there'll be no football. Now their husbands may want to come do more stuff with them. But Matt?
I got two thoughts. Well, I got three thoughts. Number one, I think Washington's going to win a close game. I like Penix. He's got some terrific receivers, and then I would love, Franz is such a great rider. Is it Odunze, his name? I mean, what a great sports name. Rome Odunze, I think that's his friend. The guy catches everything. Penix throws darts. He just catches it. They got McMillan and Polk. Those three young men will play in the NFL a long time. So I like Washington because I just think they're better on offense. Two, I honestly think if Michigan played an SEC schedule, they would be lucky to have they would have two definite losses. If you give them, by the way, I saw Florida's schedule next year, France, for football. My God, it's brutal. If Michigan's not playing, Purdue or Michigan State this year was terrible with the whole Mel Tucker situation. Michigan had the easiest schedule of any path of the four teams that made the Final Four. Did they step up against Alabama 4 minutes ago? Absolutely. Credit to Michigan. Okay, Alabama lost that game more. Michigan won that game in my mind. But the final thing, Franz, I followed you Saturday. You were at Florida-Kentucky basketball. Two thoughts that look like a hell of a game, but secondly, is Kentucky for real? That's my question. Well,
I'll start with your last statement. Kentucky's real, but so is Florida.
That's what I thought.
As John Calipari said afterward, he said, "Hey, Florida is really good. Yeah. We were lucky," and they were, because Florida. You go back. Florida missed 11 layups in the game.
Wow.
Florida goes 1 for 11 from the 3-point line in the second half. Florida misses free throws.
Yeah.
Think of it like this. If Florida makes 2 more free throws, 1 more layup, and 1 more 3-pointer, Florida wins the game, and everybody's ranking them in the top 20, not just the top 25, but the top 20 this week. And yet at the same time, John's got good players. I mean, no question about it. And he's got some size this year to work with. I don't know who was more surprised, the people in the O-Dome or Aaron Bradshaw, that 3-pointer actually went in. Did you see the look on his face when he turns to go up the court after he makes that 3-pointer? It was almost like a Nancy Kerrigan. Why me? But it went in,
Ooh.
And they've got a good team, and they're for real. Tennessee is really, really good. But, it's funny. Somebody at SI was ranking coaches on the tier, or programs on tier, and they had Tennessee ranked ahead of Florida. How's that? Tennessee has made 1 Elite 8 in its entire basketball history. Florida has won 2 national championships and has been to 5 Final Fours. How is that? You got in the SEC, you got Kentucky, and you want to know who the second tier program is? It's the University of Florida. That's the number 2 program. And we got the coach now that is going to do the difference. Mike White right now is 11-3 at Georgia, but I guarantee you Georgia will end up winning 18 ball games.
Yeah.
But you know what? At Georgia, you win 18 games a year, they will put a statue of you outside. At Florida, that'll get you fired. It's kind of like with football, going to the Music City Bowl, Mark Stoops can do that. And they think at Kentucky, Mark Stoops just has hung the football moon. But guess what? You do you go to the Music City Bowl at Florida, you know what they're going to do? They're going to say, "Hey, go coach at Kentucky. Go coach at South Carolina. We don't need you. We need somebody who's going to win 13 ball games."
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, Matt. Look, love having you on here. Great insight. But man, once your mind expands from its original size and goes way up here, meaning you win a national championship, that's what's expected. Once you eat at the best steakhouse in town, CK's Coffee Shop at 3 a.m, the old shoe leather, steak, it just doesn't cut it anymore. The Salisbury steak no longer does for you what it used to do. I mean, it won't happen. And I agree. Golden, the basketball coach at Florida, he's good. I watched the thing about Florida winning those back-to-back national championships in basketball. It was on SEC Network. We were watching it over the weekend. What the name of it is, not back-to-back, but what was the name of that series, that documentary?
Oh, I don't remember.
But they were at that pep rally, and there were like 21,000 people celebrating the national championship, and all the players said, we're coming back the next year. And that's what was so cool. But anyway, Matt, let people know how they can follow you and keep up with you, and we'll talk to you again on Thursday.
It's always great to be on, Rob. Great to see you, Franz. At Dino Hoops 44 on X, roadslinks.com. You can follow our Roads Links. Our women had a great week. They won 3 conference games on the road, and I always tell people, because I coached basketball here for a long time, road wins are like gold bars, really hard to do. It's hard to win on the road. Hell, it's hard to win anywhere, but when you win on the road, it's really terrific. And you know what? It's going to be a great game tonight, and it's always a pleasure. You guys take care.
I'm going to get me a Rhodes hoodie at the bookstore this week. That's a cool. I love their colors. And y'all need to adopt that Lynx cat at the Memphis Zoo. That's for another show. But anyway, as your official mascot, and start bringing him to all the games. But just don't let him loose.
Rob, come on by the lair. I'll break your diet. We'll get you a cheeseburger. Come on by and see me. We'll be good.
After 12, I will. I'll be there this week. Hey, take care. Great stuff as always. Franz, I can't say it enough, man. And talking to Brendan and about the writing that you're putting out. I mean, I've got friends that, they read this stuff and they're like, who is this guy? And then they go, okay, that's the guy that's on your show. And I'm like, yeah, he's a great writer. And my dad says something like, in your 60s is when you start to hit your stride as an architect. And, the thing that we are missing so much, remember the daily structure that we had growing up. You could read a guy like Mike Royko or Louis Grizzard, a sports writer like Jesse Outler, Jack Harrison, Furman Bisher. Furman Bisher would write these lines, say the Auburn, Georgia game. He would say, these 2 proud programs marched on to the battlefield like great warriors. As the sun set that afternoon in Athens, and sugar cubes were thrown onto the football field as Auburn players celebrated an SEC championship between the hedges. Coach Vince Dooley reminded the Georgia faithful better days were ahead after winning 3 straight. These great writers. Again, we bought a copy of Aesop's Fables Christmas Eve at Costco. Audrey and I did 487 fables. But damn, man, I just read this while we were talking. I'm multi-talented. I can listen but I'm reading it, and it's like that. It's like you just had a great salad. I mean, there's so much rich content in there. And you talked about Florida just now. Both Kentucky and Florida are good. I don't know how good Auburn is this year. They beat Arkansas 83-51, but we're going to be transitioning. We've got a group therapy. After tonight, we're going to take a little break from college football games, but we're going to go to the Senior Bowl, East-West Shrine game, and all that. And about mid-February, somebody will start spring practice. So a brief respite. It'll be a little slower pace, but we got college basketball coming up. Give me your top 5 SEC basketball teams at this very moment. It's kind of like the closing number on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It's just as of this moment.
Number 1, Kentucky. Number 2, Tennessee. Number 3 is going to surprise you because I'm going to put Florida there at number 3. Number 4 right now. It's a toss-up there, but I'm going to put Alabama there at number 4. And I think they're better than their record would indicate. And they've got and they've got Mark Sears, who really is a difference maker. My number 5 is another toss up, but I'm gonna go right now with South Carolina just because of the way they're playing. No, excuse me, I should have said that. Auburn. I'm sorry. I was thinking about it. Auburn. Is poised to go way up, and the reason I don't have them way up right now is their schedule coming into the SEC. They played a pretty weak schedule, but the thing about it is they're winning. They're 12-2 right now. They're winning, and they've got size to go with the guards. That freshman guard is something special. Alabama's got Mark Sears, great point guard there. Tennessee has the point guard. Florida, Zion Pullen has the point guard. Kentucky has the point guard. And that's my point that what a word, point for point guard. Yes. Oh yeah. I'm talking about brilliant writers. I just had a brain fart, but there's a common denominator in all these teams, and that is they have a great point guard. The team that has the best point guard in the SEC is going and can combine that with the right amount of size is going to win. And this is one of the reasons why Tennessee can get to the Sweet 16. But I don't think they're going to get past that because they don't have the big men to do it. They really don't. Their best big man left them. My goodness. You just can't. You went to Michigan, of all places. But you've got to have that combination of size. Calipari pointed that out. He said Florida has got great size. He said had they played us before Bradshaw was eligible or coming back from injury, whichever one, I don't remember which one it was. He said they would have beaten us. So these 5 teams right there are your best, and they're going to. But the SEC is going to have more than 5 teams right now. 8 SEC teams are in the top 50 of the net rankings. I think there will be 8 SEC teams in the Big Ten. There's 14 teams in the Big Ten, and they'll get 21 of them in the NCAA tournament.
Exactly.
I don't know what it is. Maybe they got dirty pictures of people at the NCAA or something like that. But every year they get all this hype. And when was the last Big Ten national championship in basketball? I mean, most people who watched the tournament weren't even alive.
2000, Michigan State in 2000.
Yep. Before that, it was 1988.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the Big Ten in football. This is the Big Ten shining moment tonight when you think about it, because you got Michigan in there and Washington's coming into the Big Ten. And guess what? On October 5th of this year, guess who's going to play? Washington and Michigan are going to play in a regular season game. This is the Big Ten's one shining moment tonight in the Irony Bowl. But in basketball, the SEC's got a lot of really good teams. And they're fortunate because we're in a year when there is not a great team. Maybe the closest thing to a great team is in the Big 12, and that's Houston. But Houston even has some flaws. Kelvin Sampson has this rule, I think, that if you are more than say a foot taller than him, he can't recruit you. And Kelvin's Kelvin's like 5'3". No, I'm sorry.
He's small.
Kelvin's 5'7". Yeah. Kelvin's dad was a guy named Ned Sampson, and Ned Sampson was the coach at Red Springs High School in North Carolina. And Red Springs is an Lumbee Indian town. I don't know if you know that, but Kelvin is a Lumbee.
Yeah.
And for some reason, every year they'd have a 6'7" center. He's from like Asheville, and I'm 187th Lumbee, so I'm moving to get back to my roots. Oh, that it was
well. You know what? I mean, he was, and I'm gonna put this up here from the town that you just talked about, Lumbee, North Carolina.
Red Springs.
Okay, Red Springs. Okay. Well, you think about Calvin Sampson. He is a hell of a coach. But you're right.
He can cheat the best of them.
Yeah, he's had some text messages or what have you that got him in trouble. But
Indiana, he got in trouble in Indiana. He got in trouble in Oklahoma. He's one of these people that if wherever he goes, he's going to get in trouble.
Yeah. Here, a little bit of trivia here. Former Georgia running back legend Tim Worley in 1988. The backfield with him. He was from Lumbee, North Carolina.
Lumberton.
Okay, my mistake. But Lars Tate was from Indianapolis. That was a great backfield they had. Hey, let's take a quick break, commercial break. We're going to be right back and bring in Wess Moore from Little Rock right after this with Franz Beard and Rob Browne live from Memphis, the River City, on this Monday edition, National Championship Monday of Sidelines. Again, right after this.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shopp's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
All right, Rob Browne back here. Let's bring in Wess Moore. Wess is in transit somewhere over in Little Rock, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz, and Fox Sports Channel 16 in Little Rock. He's all over the place. Also does the ESPN Plus college football games for the University of Central Arkansas Bears. Wes got Franz Moore on with us. Franz Beard, we have been talking about college basketball, the college football playoff national championship. We're kind of transitioning between the two, but before we get to that, a lot of things happening with Arkansas football recruiting, especially in the portal. Got a lot of Arkansas fans that watch and listen to Sidelines, and you're right on top of it. But first off, Happy New Year. We've missed you the last couple of Mondays with fans both, with no show for Christmas or New Year's. But tell us what's going on up there in Fayetteville, because there's a lot of, looks like, good things happening in football recruiting.
Yeah, the portal's been good for Sam Pittman and the Razorbacks. They continue to add players. Yesterday they had a day where they added a defensive back from South Alabama. They added a wide receiver from Texas A&M, an offensive lineman, also a defensive lineman. So they've been doing well. The last was a defensive end from Albany. I'm not even going to try to say his name because we haven't learned it yet. But he led the FCS. He was an FCS All-American and led the FCS in sacks, I believe, was 17 last season. So they're getting their needs. I think there may be an offensive lineman from Florida, actually, that could be committing to Arkansas today. He had one of those cryptic messages. So I think he's going to commit today. That would be 5 offensive linemen. And Sam Pittman told us after the Missouri game that was going to be the area of need that they were going to stress. And they've gone out and got 5 new offensive linemen. Of course, they've hit the linebackers, they've hit corners, they've hit everything. And they've done a really good job. I saw that after the last commitment, they had the 4th best portal class in the SEC, 9th best in the country. And guys, I don't know how you feel, but to me now, the portal's as maybe more important than what you're doing in high school, because the portal, those are guys that are going to come in and start or contribute or give you depth right away, whereas a lot of these freshmen, you're going to have to develop, and not many of those freshmen usually play in year one.
Well, it with the high school recruiting is as good as it's kind of like dogs and horses. I mean, owners. Dogs can't read their pedigrees, but their owners can. You get a puppy or a new horse, or you get a started one. That's what you're getting when you go into the portal. You know that they can compete in the college level. They may have some problems, but they're going to have those anywhere. 18 to 23-year-old kids. I've got 4 kids of my own. Man, I agree with what Wes just said, Franz. He's right, but that Arkansas needed this news big time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's great for them because they got a rabid and extremely loyal and passionate fan base, and Wes is right in the middle of it in the capital city of Arkansas.
Well, Arkansas had a need for linemen, and you get them in. And, it's a developmental position. You get a kid that come out of high school who may be 6'6", but he's 280, and you can't play tackle in the SEC or guard at 280 pounds. You're going to need a minimum of 40 more pounds to play in the SEC. And so it's a developmental position, and that kid's got to hit the weight room and get the better nutrition and all the other stuff that it takes. And he may get there in 2 years, but chances are it's probably 3 years later. So what are you going to do during those 3 years? Well, you're going to go to the portal, and you're going to find somebody who can play today, now. And that's the key. Look what Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss. Lane has lost 18 guys in the portal, but he brought in 12. And I guarantee you, he brought in, of the 12 he brought in, 11 of them are starters.
Yeah.
He brought in a kid from FAU who's a wide receiver, and you look at him and you say, well, he's only caught about 8 passes. Yeah, but the kid is an absolute special teams demon. And this is the kid that's going to be first one down on punt coverage and stuff like that. So, but you look at that, what Lane's done there, and it's kind of like Arkansas. Arkansas has a lot of good football players in the state, but you don't have enough to stock an SEC roster every year if you just recruit Arkansas. So you're going to have to, where you got to pick up the edge. You can go to Texas and get a lot of good high school kids, but you still got to wait for them. You pick up your edge in the portal, and that's where the portal, in a lot of ways, is the one thing that will level the playing field for the people that aren't like Alabama and aren't like Georgia, where they got a lot of that going out.
Yeah, Wes, we drove over to Duval's Bluff yesterday over there in Highway 70 to Craig's Barbecue. My wife and I picked up a dozen Craig's Barbecue sandwiches. The pie lady, over there, if you ever go to Duval's Bluff, go to Craig's Barbecue, West. You've probably been there, but the pie, they were out of pie. Their chocolate pies, coconut chess pies are the best in the world. Craig's Barbecue, nothing like it. Drove all over eastern Arkansas yesterday, selfishly looking for ducks. The drought over here is pretty severe. It's been one of those wild duck seasons, but, if you're married and you're a member of a duck club, a little bit of advice here when your wife says, how's the hunting? It's awesome. I mean, what'd you do with the Ducks? I gave them away. I gave them to some hungry people, but I love this state. God, you are so damn lucky. You do a great job, Fox Sports Channel 16. My friend Jeff Tickenen, TK, big Michigan fan. It was so cool. I got a text from him Saturday, and his brother-in-law, he goes, "Hey, I need to go get a new truck. Who should I call over at Red River Ford Toyota and win?" I had him hooked up with Brandon Boger, one of the salesmen over there. I'm going to tell you how cool that guy is. Brandon goes, "I'm actually off today, but what time do you need me to be there?" And I said, he took care of it. Jeff got him a brand new truck from Red River Ford Toyota and win. Love the people in the state. Love it. Wes, let's talk about, again, now basketball. Auburn, I wasn't shocked that they won, but by 32. Arkansas basketball, Kentucky, Florida, and Arkansas. Those are your three top programs in terms of national championships and all like that. What's going on up there with Eric Musselman's team this year? It's hard not to think they're going to turn it around.
Yeah, I still believe they will turn it around, but this has been an up and down season. We've seen some flashes of brilliance, and then we've seen, just where they look discombobulated like they did Saturday. Eric Musselman was as frustrated as I've ever heard him after the game Saturday. It was the worst loss ever at Bud Walton Arena, and it was Musselman. He said it was the worst loss he's ever taken at home. That second half was as bad as it gets, man. But I think it was a little bit of a perfect storm. It's a bad matchup for Arkansas. Auburn's got some big dudes, Browne inside. They got three dudes, and they were the more physical team. They got to the paint. The points in the paint, they outscored Arkansas by 30 points in the paint. First half, Arkansas was right there playing good defense. Their offense was okay. This Arkansas had the lead 27-26 at the under 4 timeout.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think 16 minutes into the game, Arkansas led by 1 and they lost by 32. That tells you how bad that second half was for Arkansas. I think part of it is this has turned into a rivalry between players. And I think you saw that a little bit during the game, the mouthing that was going on. Auburn had a couple of those cheap fouls or technical fouls called for taunting. I thought it was cheap. But that's the way they don't like each other. And I think Arkansas was getting after it. And then once it got out of hand, it just deflated them and they rolled over and it made it look even worse. But I give all credit to Auburn. I'm impressed with Auburn. I think Auburn's got a good team. I think they're underrated at 25. I think they'll continue to move up the rankings. But that doesn't diminish the fact that Arkansas laid an egg at home. You just don't expect that at Bud Walton Arena for them to get beat by 32. But Musselman, he said, he's like, we just got to go back to the drawing board and figure out our identity. The identity's been defense, and it's not defense right now.
Find a point guard would help too.
Well, Minifield's the bright spot. Minifield, this was his third game. He led Arkansas in scoring and assists. He's running the team. Honestly, the problem's inside. They got to get somebody that wants to be physical and tough, play defense, protect the rim, rebound. They didn't have any of that against Auburn. Brazil is supposed to be a first-round pick. He's not playing like a first-round pick. He looks like to me a guy that's coming off an ACL injury, and he's not, sure about that knee. He's still playing timid. He's floating around outside, wanting to shoot the three. He's 6'10", 6'11", and athletic. He needs to get inside. The occasional three is fine, but there was a time they're on a fast break, and he floats to the outside to shoot a three. You got to go in and finish that with a dunk. What are you doing? And it's just kind of frustrating to watch him play right now. But look, hopefully that was rock bottom. They got embarrassed. This will make them mad. And whatever is going on inside, this will get them to change what they're doing and get it fixed and turn things around.
I got to ask you, Arkansas basketball. I mean, they 19,000 fans, Bud Walton Arena. They got a very invested basketball fan base, Wes. They know basketball. And again, I spent a lot of time in Arkansas. There's less than 3 million people, but they've got damn good if you look per capita at the number of players who've come out of this state, I mean, there are a bunch of them. And I mean, we all know Scottie Pippen played at University of Central Arkansas over in Conway. Trivia question here. You don't get to do it, Wes, but Franz, do you know the nickname of the Conway High School athletic teams?
The Wampus Cats.
Because you listen to this show.
No,
I still think it's the greatest name ever.
Already, I read Dan Jenkins.
Okay, but I remember, but Wes, for Auburn to get a win like that up there, that's a big deal. But Musselman, man, you get to be around him. His dad, Bill Musselman, was a great, he was a damn good, at least, NBA coach. The one thing Eric Musselman won't do is he won't, lay down on this team. And so you feel good about, you mentioned Minifield, your point guard. If Franz is right, it's the same thing as the quarterback. If you don't have a point guard, it's like not having a quarterback, isn't it?
Yeah, and Minifield, what he's done is impressive. He was ruled ineligible when he transferred from Washington, and he was a all Pac-12 as a freshman at Washington. I think he was the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, and just was practicing with the team. They came to Little Rock about 3 weeks ago, and he found out Friday before the game that he had been cleared and was eligible, and played 18 minutes or so in Little Rock, had 2 points, and you could just tell. He's finding his way. And then the next week against UNC Wilmington, he had 30-something points, was the SEC Player of the Week. And then he came out and look, the reason they were beating Auburn at the under 4 timeout was because of Minifield. He was playing well. I think at that point he had 8 points and a couple assists, and they were really depending on him offensively. And then Arkansas hit a little bit of a lull the last 4 minutes, and they went from up 1 to down 7, I think, at the half. Yeah. And then in the second half, it was just, like I said, a complete disaster. So I know Minifield is part of this. He's going to be their point guard. But they got too many other talented players. Caleb Battle, Tamon Mark, like I said, Brazil. They've got the guys. It's just really – it starts on the defensive end. Auburn had too easy of a time getting to the paint. They were dribble drive, the penetration, they would lob dunks, layups, and sometimes it came from like Devo Davis is their best defensive player. Devo was getting beat time after time by Auburn, and it was kind of odd to see because that doesn't normally happen to him. But this team clearly was in a funk Saturday in the second half, and that's how you get a 30-point blowout.
Yeah, they'll be in Gainesville Saturday.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, they go on the road and play at Georgia Wednesday. So this is a tough week for them. I mean, that was a big game. They needed to get off to a good start. But guys, this is a trend. I don't have my notebook in front of me, but it's something like 0-3 last year to start SEC play, 2-5 the year before, maybe 2-5. Anyway, 3 straight years they've gotten off to a losing start in the SEC. But come February, March, Musselman finds the rotation, finds the guys, and they start clicking, and then they make a run in March. So that's what fans here are hoping, and that's what I believe. I still think he'll figure it out, and he'll find the right combination of guys, and they'll make their run, and they'll be okay.
Well, I mean, I've been watching Arkansas basketball all my life, and Eddie Sutton – I think about, the Nolan Richardson years, and they just, every time you play them, I'm never going to get the 40 minutes of hell out of my mind. Even that was 17 years of Nolan Richardson. Wes, real quick before I got another question for you, how long have you been covering sports in the state of Arkansas? You're from Jacksonville, Texas, up in North. Did y'all play Carrollton, Texas in high school?
No, never did. Carrollton was up in the Metroplex. As far off as we got was Terrell, Texas. That's as far up as we got. That means
okay. All right, got to ask you this, and we got about 10 minutes left. But the national championship game tonight, Michigan and Washington. Who do you think's going to win?
I got Washington. I think arguably, I think you can make a case the Pac-12 was the best conference in the country this year. Washington, I've won a lot of money on Washington. Twice against Oregon last week. I got Washington plus 4.5. I got Washington outright. I got Washington scoring over 25.5 points. I think their offensive line, which won the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in the country, will be able to better handle that Michigan pressure and give Penix time to throw. And if he has time to throw, he's going to exploit the safeties for Michigan. And that's something Alabama couldn't do, and I thought they would be able to do, because that's the weakness of this Michigan defense. Their safeties are slow. And I thought, the Alabama wide receivers were going to exploit that, but they didn't have time to throw deep down the field. Washington will be able to because of that offensive line. Their defense is just good enough. Look, they're not going to shut down Michigan. Corum's going to get his yards. Michigan's going to score. They'll probably get, 24, 27 points. But Washington, to me, that offense and Penix, he is one of the best. I think he's the best. Well, I'm not taking anything away from Jaden Daniels and what he did at LSU. It was a remarkable season. But Penix is right there. He is a great college quarterback, and I see Penix getting his yards and those receivers getting their scores. I think Washington wins in a shootout. They score 30-something points and beat Michigan tonight.
All right. And I'm going to pick Michigan. I'm going to pick Michigan to win 34-28 because I like their defensive line a lot. Even though Washington's loaded, they got 26 fifth and sixth-year seniors, but I'm going with Michigan to win. But like you said, Michael Penix Jr. is a sixth-year senior. I don't know what he hasn't seen, but Franz, give us again. You've got Michigan versus Washington. You'd love it, Harbaugh to win because he can, stick it to the NCAA. I like your angle.
Well, as I said before, this is the Irony Bowl because if Michigan wins, they're probably going to have all 15 games vacated. Yeah, have you ever thought about this? They vacate wins, so why don't they vacate the losses? If you were part of a team that had its wins vacated, why don't they vacate your loss? I mean, you could go from 6-6 to all of a sudden to 6-5. You had a winning season. Because if you could eliminate the vacated game, that just always killed me how the NCAA does that. I'm looking at this with the idea that Michael Penix is going to have just enough time because nobody has seen receivers like Washington has. They remind me so much of LSU 2019 when Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase and people forget, here's Justin Jefferson, who is like they're saying could be the greatest receiver in the history of the NCAA. He was the number 3 guy on that receiver rotation at LSU in 2019. And Washington's got 4 wide receivers, all with more than 30 catches, and all of them are burners and big guys. And Rome Odunze, he's a beast. You're talking 6'3", 225 pounds, and the guy's got meat hooks for hands. If the ball is anywhere close to him, it is caught. I think Washington's going to win the ball game. I really do. But it doesn't matter because what happens is if Washington wins, it's like sticking the finger to the rest of the Pac-2. Of a 123 or 126-year-old conference that is gone now. And if Michigan wins, you probably have a school that cheated its way to the top. Yeah. And, like I said, but guys, this feels like the consolation game of the NIT. There's not an SEC team in it. So how can this be for real?
All right. Let me throw this at you. I know you got to get going, and I want you to tell people what you're talking about on your show today. I would love to get Clint Sterner on my show if he's ever available. I just watched the documentary about Burlsworth. It is emotional to watch that, and I also think about that season. And Clint Sterner's a good guy. I don't know him, but I think he's a good person. You get to be around him a lot, but I wish he was still on SEC Network. I love people like that. I mean, he does a lot. He's from Baytown, Texas, and I've been to Baytown several times. But talk about what you'll be talking about on your show, and also why is Michigan a 4.5-point favorite. There are a lot of tall buildings, as Mark Slabaugh always says on the show, in Las Vegas for a lot of reasons.
Well, they're sucking in all that money is what they're doing. I thought Michigan was going to be a 7-point favorite. Watching the way their lines have been this season, a lot. I mean, look, Michigan's a very popular school. They got a lot of alum. They got a lot of people betting on them. And so I think my theory is they're enticing that Michigan money, just sucking it in so they can win all that money when Washington beats them outright tonight. So, like you said, Vegas, they know what they're doing. I think it's just kind of trying to entice all those people to bet on Michigan. But anyway, we're going to have Clint on the show today. He's down in Houston. He covers the Texans, and they're very happy about what happened with the Houston Texans yesterday. We'll talk NFL with him. And, of course, we're going to talk national championship since it's in his backyard in Houston tonight. We're also going to talk a little bit about Oakland. We had a bunch of bad weather over the weekend, and it caused the cancellation yesterday due to track conditions. And that's very rare. That doesn't happen very often. So we're going to see how the track is and what they're having to do to fix this track. We're going to talk Razorback basketball, of course, after that disappointing game. So a big weekend, and it continues tonight with the national championship game. We'll be talking about that today. Go on 1037thebuzz.com, and you can watch us there. We're doing the StreamYard thing. You can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or you can download your Buzz app and listen to us or watch us right there also.
That's what we're on StreamYard, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You're going to love it. And also our good friend Frank Duffy, Mr. Go Tigers, LSU Tigers, of course, has a young filly, less than 2-year-old over there at Hot Springs with a trainer. And whenever it runs, we're all going over to Oakland. We'd love to do the show from there, but that is one of the hidden gems in the horse racing world in America. I mean, my wife yesterday, by the way, when we were going to Craig's, West, they were out of pie. So she pulled up a website, 27 places in Arkansas to buy a pie. I'll tell you another great one, West. We hunt in Grubbs, Arkansas, right by Newport. Blue Jays. Go to Blue Jays grocery store anytime you're over there for breakfast, lunch. They got great steaks and fillets. The pies are unbelievable. My dog trainer, Chris Aiken, Web-Footed Kennels in Jonesboro, goes there every day for every meal during duck season. Blue Jays in Grubbs, Arkansas. Love the state. Love having you on, Wes. I know you got a big day ahead of you. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us. And like I said, love having you on here. Love your insight, okay?
And you're in Memphis, Rob, and you got to go to Corky's for banana pudding. Nobody has better banana pudding on the planet than Corky's.
They do, but one more thing, Wes. We stopped off on the way back from Duval's Bluff from Craig's at the White River Dairy Bar. Their banana pudding was fit for a king or a queen. I'm just saying, right there on the White River in the natural state. But no, Wes is, both of y'all are right. But anyway, hey, guys, great show as always. Appreciate everybody taking their time to join us. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We have the greatest guests, sponsors, and viewers. We'll see you tomorrow. We are out of here.